When you look at like when you were a kid, was most of your relationship with your dad like hockey? Like, was it tough to, because if you excelled at something early, right? And a lot of times fathers and sons it's tough for fathers and sons to find like a common ground sometimes to connect on things, you know? Parents are always putting their kids into different things, and dads are always trying to connect with their children, you know? Was there other ways that you could, like, was that most of y'all's relationship? Like, I'm just kind of like, I guess I'm curious, like, what it was like.
We had a normal relationship, like normal father-son. My dad was sort of this hockey father of the country, you know? People loved my dad. Oh, yeah,
Walter Gretzky, man.
But I would always say, but it was my mom behind the scenes that kept our family. She was a wonderful lady, and she always kind of stayed out of the limelight. Like when I was a kid and I'd play, all the parents used to sit sort of together, and my mom would sit in a corner by herself. Not too often you can say that people don't have enemies, but I don't think my dad had an enemy. Like, he was beloved by everyone. I remember one time I came home, and when I would go home and visit him every now and then, you know, my dad would tell the whole city, right?
That you were coming?
Yeah. So I got smart on that. And I called my mom and I'd say, I'll be home tomorrow. Don't tell Dad. So I get there in the morning. This is hilarious. And I walk in, and there's a guy lying on the couch.
Oh, yeah.
I get over to my mom, and I kind of know everybody that goes in and out of our house, you know. My mom was in the kitchen, and I said, who's lying on the couch? Who is that? She goes, I don't know, but he's hitchhiking across the country from Newfoundland, wanted to see the house, so your dad told him to spend the night and have a good meal. Wow. So that's the kind of guy my dad was. And the guy spent the night and got up in the morning, and him and I had coffee at the dining room table.
No way.
You got to get a picture with my jersey on when I happened to be home that day, and he was hitchhiking the rest of Canada. That was the kind of dad my dad was.
Wow. They should put him in a jersey and let's let him hitchhike the country forever and just make it like a thing, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know,
it's not the Stanley Cup, but hey guys, have you met Stanley? And everybody just picks him up.
There you go. Yeah, it'd be funny. My dad would be in the car, and after the game, he would say to me, his favorite line was always, no matter how good you think you are, there's somebody out there better than you. And I'd say, okay. And even when I was 15, 16, when people said, okay, he's going to be a professional hockey player, my dad never one time said, you know, oh, he's a can't miss or he's going to make it. I mean, he hoped because he knew how much I loved it. But he never pressured me. So we had an ice rink in my backyard from the time I was 3 years old.
I saw some lore about that.
Yeah. So my dad would go and he would buy a sprinkler head in December, which they always thought he was crazy. Who's buying a sprinkler head Christmas time? Anyway, and he would put it out in the middle of the ice, and he would let it go back and forth for like 2 hours, and then go move it another part of the ice. And his ice was always about this thick, and it would last till probably the end of March.
Did he lay a good rink?
Oh, he had the best.
Really?
Yeah. And he was funny. People used to stop by the house and say, how does Walter get his grass so green? What do you do? What are you putting in your grass? My dad didn't do anything. It was just probably from the ice being so good for the grass. He always had the greenest grass in the neighborhood and didn't do anything. My dad used to always tease me when I was 13, 14, 15. He'd always say, if you do make professional hockey, just remember, buy me a Cadillac.
Yeah.
So I bought him one of those big Brits Cadillacs, and I brought it home, right? So the summer goes by, the year goes by, I go back home the next summer, and I look at the car, and there's like 80 miles on it. And I go and I said to my mom, I said, I bought Dad this car. Why is he not driving it? She goes, he can't drive it to work because he doesn't want to have a nicer car than his boss. Oh. So I ended up, I think he sold it. I don't think he really ever drove it, but it was a good father-son thing that we had together growing up as a kid, right?
Yeah. Did you speak at your dad's funeral? What was that like?
Yeah, I did. I spoke both at my mom and my dad's.
And sorry to hear. Yeah, sorry about your folks, man.
Yeah, it was, you know what? It was funny because there's something that just takes over inside you that you get through it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I remember when my mom passed, my dad called me and said, you know, will you speak? And I said, of course. So when my dad was passing, my brothers and my sister said, you know, will you speak? And I said, yeah. The ironic thing was, when my dad passed, we were still in the midst of the pandemic. So it was actually in a lot of ways, it was nice for our family because there was only 22 of us there. And, you know, because you couldn't.
Right, you couldn't invite everybody.
Had it not been at that time, he probably would have had to get buried or had the funeral in a hockey arena with so many people. He was so loved by so many people. So when I found both times sitting there going, oh, this is going to be hard. And then when I got up there, it just kind of flowed because my dad, when I spoke at he was so religious, my dad. And, you know, he never missed church on a Sunday. He went every Sunday. And he used to tease the kids because he tried out for the church choir and they wouldn't let him in it.
Dang, come on, bro.
Yeah. So there was a little boy across the street.
They'll let anybody
who was,
in,
disabled and blind. And my dad picked him up every morning at 10 a.m., every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And took him to church every Sunday. And then brought him back home. He'd take him to McDonald's and then back home. And he did it every Sunday. So when my dad was passing, he's so religious. But I remember he was still fighting to stay down here, so to speak. He was 22 days basically on a deathbed, right? And the minister would come every night at our house and he would give him his last rites. And
he'd ride him out again.
Yeah, I say to the minister, my dad's got the biggest heart. You're coming. I'll see you tomorrow. So anyway, when I did give the eulogy, I could feel like he was there and he got me through it.
Wow. That's fascinating, man. Yeah, I remember I went to my dad's funeral. It was like, I don't know. It's just such a strange, it's such a, I don't know. It's wild seeing something like that happen. Do you think it helped that your father had such a faith? Did he give you
Oh, yeah. Like he knew there was life after death. He was going to see his mother. He was going to see his father.
So he's probably, part of him was probably excited, huh?
Yeah, I think, in some ways, but I think he wanted to be here as long as he could. Yeah. He loved being around his grandkids. He loved being around people. He was just really special in that sense.